Okay. All right. So parents, what do we do about those tough conversations that we need to have with our kids? What do we do when we're stressed ourselves? And how do we take ourselves and our kids off the hook for that stress? So one of the things that I started doing when Quinn was little, and I do it with my staff even, if I'm having a bad day, if there's something that didn't go right, um, I will announce immediately to my staff or to Quinn, I'll say, look, I'm having a bad day. And if you feel that stress or tension from me, or if I'm snippy, it has zero to do with you. It's 100% about what's going on with me. So please forgive me and completely ignore it. And this is important for everyone, but it's really important for our kids because they can feel that energy. Even if you're not saying anything, they can feel if you're angry or if you're afraid. And kids especially will immediately go into, oh my gosh, this is all my fault. I don't know what I did, and I don't know why she's mad at me, but clearly it's all my fault when it has nothing to do with them. So you can take yourself off the hook for that, and you can take your kids off the hook for that just by saying to them, look, this isn't about you. The other thing is, I'm sorry to say the other night I was having a bad day and I did get snippy with Quinn and I felt so horrible about it. And a lot of times as parents, we don't want to admit that we have failed or screwed up. And so we just sort of bury it. I just push it away. And that leaves a residue in your relationship, sometimes forever. So as bad as I felt about it, the very first thing I did when I had a chance to is say to Quinn, hey, we need to talk. I behaved badly. I am so sorry. It had nothing to do with you, and I apologize. And again, that sort of pops that bubble. It takes her off the hook of feeling like she was responsible. It removes that wedge that can come into your relationship. And I have found it just really effective.
I was going to say too, it seems like, again, because I'm not a parent, but it seems like that would almost like strengthen your bond together too, because as a parent, when you're willing to admit your wrongs, admit your shortcomings, and kind of make yourself vulnerable in its own way of saying like, hey, you know what? I messed up and, this was not your fault and I take full responsibility. Seems like that would kind of tighten the bond for when they have their own struggle to kind of feel free that your door as a parent is open and that they can come to you and talk to you and maybe admit their own mistakes of saying like, hey mom, like, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
So have you found that the case kind of in your own relationship?
Well, I think it makes it easier for kids to step up and accept their behavior and accept that it's okay, because there's so much shame around making mistakes. I mean, think about it. Our kids make mistakes and we as parents often point it out to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get punished in some way. And so that creates a climate of shame. And one of the most destructive things in anyone's life is shame. And, Ryan, I know you are a leader in the whole world of helping kids be empowered and confident and preventing teen suicide, which is such a huge deal. And a big contributor to that is shame. And if we can eliminate that from everybody's life, we're going to have a much better world.
Right. Yeah. So I guess too, and because the conversation got brought up, and now that we have parents right now as an audience, is somebody asked me the other question. Actually, it was Mike the other day that asked me the other question: is do we have to take a look at overall how we're parenting kids?
I absolutely think so. I absolutely believe that. I grew up in a very abusive home. We'll just leave it at that. And I made a very conscious decision about how I was going to parent. We don't do spankings. We don't hit. We, you know, have conversations. When Quinn was little, I think she was about 6. I'm a single parent, and when things weren't going well and we were having discipline issues, I would sit her down and I would say, Quinn and mommy are a team. We have to work together as a team. And I need your help by doing things like, cleaning your room or whatever it is that needs to get done. And then I have things that I do, and I would, I do this and I do that. And we have to treat each other like we're a team. And there were people who heard that that's how I parented, and they're like, she's going to be a spoiled brat, and she, you don't discipline her, and no spankings and all that kind of stuff. And I said, I don't care. I'm not going to hit my kid.
Yeah.
And of course I'm biased. You've met Quinn though, and most of the people that I know would say she's a delightful human being. She has her moments like we all do,
right.
But she's definitely not a spoiled kid.
Yeah. No, I think that's another big piece. Is it seems like, obviously I see a lot of, in dealing with kids, I see a lot of the parent to kid relationship. And I think that gets lost is the term team, right? I feel like that there's almost this divide between kids and parents so often of kind of like you do what I say, that type of thing. There's this big hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm the dictator, the tyrant, and, it just kind of goes down from there. So how can parents, I guess for lack of better terms, implement a little bit of this team strategy and this team building, between parents and kids?
Mm-hmm. So, I'm very clear that I am the parent, that, I am responsible. We are good friends, but I'm a parent first. I'm responsible for helping to guide her, but I also have to treat her with respect. Even when she was a little kid, she has an innate knowing. Her soul, her spirit, her source, whatever you want to call it, has an innate knowing. And one of the things that we can do is allow that innate knowing to thrive and not squash it down. I mean, think of all of the things that we older people were taught that we now know is not necessarily true. I mean, I will tell you, I work with CEOs of companies all over the world, and I've never worked with anyone who didn't have some form of, I'm not good enough and I don't deserve. And it comes from messages they received from their culture, their family, their school. And we as adults, I think, have to back off. And the other thing too is respecting kids enough to tell them why you're doing something. So when I would say to Quinn, well, you have to do this or whatever, it's not just do it because I said to. It's this is my thinking. This is my philosophy. She knows my philosophy of just about everything. So she knows why I'm making the decisions that I'm making. And she also has free reign to disagree. Now, I may have to, pull out the parent card and say, no, this is going to happen. But we will have a conversation before a final decision is made. And I think that's, one, respectful, but two, I want my daughter to be empowered to go out into the world. I don't want her to just, well, my mom's always told me that I had to do this, this, and this, and this, and this. And then she gets into a situation where she has to make decisions and she doesn't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by doing that, we empower them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you and I were talking about the other day, is it's not blazing the path for them, right? It's equipping them so they can blaze their own path or their trail or whatever, because they are all going on their own journey at some point. And it's making sure as a parent that they have the right tools in their toolbox to be able to blaze the trail that they want ultimately.
Right. So let's talk about what that means in what's going on in the world right now. So that, there are a lot of parents who aren't working right now. They're not sure what's going to happen. They're in their own fear, and they're not talking to their kids, and your kids can pick this up. They can feel it, and you don't want to talk to your kid. Believe me, I don't want to talk to Quinn about things that I'm not sure about or that I'm afraid of. But if I don't do that, one, she knows something's going on. It's all over social media. So even though we don't have news in our house, she's on Twitter and Instagram, and she's picking up all of this stuff. So if I don't talk to her, she's going to form her own conclusions. And if I don't share with her where I'm struggling, then I'm depriving her of an opportunity to have a role model to work through it. So when she has issues in her life, if she thinks everything was sunshiny and roses every moment of the day, and I'm not saying immerse yourself or your kid in fear. I absolutely am not saying that. Focus on what you want. You know me, Ryan.
Yeah.
Focus on what you want. Put your attention on what you want, because that's what you create in your life. But if I am struggling with something and I'm honest with her, and she sees how I work through it, she sees how I develop a strategy and solutions, then there might be time in her life where she's like, I remember when I was 17 and my mom went through something and I saw how she handled it. She didn't collapse. She didn't give up. She got calm. She meditated. Quinn knows I meditate a couple of times a day. She meditated, and she came up with a plan and got us through it. That's empowering.
Yeah. So I think that's a big, piece of the puzzle too, because as we know that kids are extremely observant, and that's how that they learn so many things, is literally from the time that they're born and sitting in the living room, they're watching mom, dad, both. What are they doing? And then in our language, I guess that's basically hardwired into their own brain of like, okay, like you said, here's a similar situation. Mom was stressed. What did she do? She panicked. She ate more, drank more, whatever the case may have been. Versus, like you said, watching, okay, they got calm in a stressful situation. I think that's so important, because like you said, kids are watching you guys, whether you know it or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's also important, I think, to talk to them about what's going on. Even if you don't have an answer. Look, I don't have the answer for the worldwide situation. So I can't say to Quinn, well, yeah, I'm going to fix it and I'll have it done by 4:00 tomorrow.
Right.
Right. But we can have a conversation where I can learn what her fears are. And I can help her work through them. And she knows I'm on it. And she knows that, whatever it is, we're going to get through it. We will deal with it together, whatever happens in our lives. And sometimes your kids just need that reassurance from you. Okay, mom may not have the actual solution yet, but she's on it, and it's okay.
Yeah. One thing, because I know a lot of people, especially adults, are dealing with the stress and the fear economically, their paychecks, money, and things like that. How would you advise, how do you kind of explain that to a kid? Maybe go back to part one a little bit too, is how do you deal with that,
Right.
from your own stress standpoint? And then part B too is kind of how do you broadly out, because you don't want to give your kids fears about money either, right?
No,
You don't want,
yeah.
So how would you kind of language that conversation maybe?
Well, I started this conversation with Quinn when she was probably 4 or 5. And you know where I'm going to go with this. That is, you get what you focus on. What you think about, you send messages out to the universe, and you tell the universe it's like ordering from a menu. I'm going to think about health, and I'm going to think about having plenty of money and a joyful life and lots of travel and all those great things. And I'm going to feel in my body the appreciation for having it before it's already received. And that's like a magnet. So you're putting in your order by thinking, you're magnetizing it back to you in your body, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so what I would do is I would start conversations about what we wanted. And Quinn is a magical manifester. She's learned this. As I said, we started this, even before she was probably 4. I was writing little personal books for her about how you manifest, in the language of a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And we do things like, I don't know if Mark Felice is still watching. I discovered him recently and I love him. He's this fabulous foodie traveler. And one of the things that we love to do is we travel. And so we've been watching his videos. He's got a couple that I've watched probably 5 or 6 times because I love them so much. And it gets us focusing on things that we love. So that's what I would do is, you have the conversation, you start it out, what do you think about this? What are you concerned about? Make it conversational, not a grilling, don't come in with the 10 questions you're going to ask, but just make it conversational and then gently switch them and switch yourself to focusing on things that you love that are delightful, remembering fun times. We've got these photo travel books that we've created, the ones where you can upload your photos and then they turn it into a book.
Yeah.
We look at those and we have conversations about, trips that we've had, trips that we're planning, all of the magic that she's manifested in her life. That's what you want to do. And kids are far better at imagining than we are. It's kind of been beaten out of us. Pay attention to what's happening and go out and put your nose to the grindstone, right? But kids are, especially the younger kids, they can drop into some sort of fantasy world without even thinking about it. Help them stay there, help them with the fantasy, because that will keep their vibration high. And even if they do experience difficulty, it won't be as hard on them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I totally follow you.
Yeah.
No, that's good stuff. I like that. I'm very selfishly, I'm getting my own class session now from you, to be able to use, with my parents and kids too. So I think that's important because, like you said, as I think a lot of parents are just avoiding the conversations. I think primarily, like you said, is because just really not knowing what to say and how to say it. I think that's probably the primary issue.
Yeah. And obviously this all has to be age appropriate. You don't say the same thing to a 6-year-old that you say to a 17-year-old.
Right.
But keep it elevated. Don't do it when you're personally overstressed or worried. Do it when you've had a little bit of calm downtime, which, speaking of which, are we ready for section 3?
Yeah, let's we got about 20 minutes or so. Let's
Okay.
dive into part 3.